Welcome to Legends in Leadership, brought to you by ISF and the Carrington Group. Legends in Leadership is an inspirational podcast featuring the stories of leaders who are making a difference. Our goal is to inspire you with the stories of leaders who come from humble beginnings, overcome challenges, and ultimately rise up to make a difference in people's lives.
Well, good morning, folks. This is Tyler Tolman. I want to welcome you to episode number 32 of Legends in Leadership. I'm a family officer with the Carrington Group, and my co-host on today's podcast, Dr. Blair Ritchie, who's the executive director of the International Student Foundation.
Hey,
episode
Tyler.
32, Blair.
Man, it's exciting.
We keep rolling along.
We're just having
People
a glorious
keep wanting
run.
to talk to us.
A glorious run.
It is awesome. We like to kick off our show with a little bit of leadership trivia. We're fascinated by the stories of leaders who, like us, come from humble beginnings and rise up as a leader to make a difference in people's lives. So, Dr. Blair, what do you have teed up for us today in the leadership category?
Got a good one today, Tyler. You know, we have
You always say they're good.
Thank you. Well, they always are. We have interviewed some really wonderful women in leadership in our podcast already, right? We got another one teed up today. So I thought I would make today's legendary leader one of the great female leaders in American history. So see if you can pick this one up.
We're gonna test you, Merrick, on this at the end, so you got to listen.
So she was a pioneer crusader for the women's suffrage movement in the United States. This leader grew up in a family that was very politically active and also quite religious, and they worked diligently in the abolitionist movement that ended slavery, as well as the temperance movement that targeted the abuse of alcohol. This leader was tireless in her efforts, giving passionate speeches around the country to support a woman's right to vote. She even took matters in her own hands in 1872 when she voted in the presidential election illegally.
Wow.
This was before illegal voting became a strategy. But she ended up being fined $100, which she never had to pay. And while she lived to the ripe old age of 86, she would have had to live to be 100 to celebrate the 19th Amendment to the United States Constitution that gave all adult women the right to vote, which was her life goal. As proof, though, that she played the critical role in bringing about this major change in American society, you only need to know that her face became money in 1979. Who was this legendary leader? I'll be back at the close of the program with the answer.
I think I have an idea.
I hope so.
Yeah.
You're into money, so.
Well, folks, I'm excited about today's guest, Merrick Porchéddu. She is the founder and CEO of Artist Uprising. Merrick graduated magna cum laude from the Mike Curb College of Music and Business from Belmont University.
That's right.
With a bachelor's in entertainment studies and business. Merrick, in 2017, you set out to start your own company called Artist Uprising, which is a concept that you believed could efficiently bridge the gap between brands seeking cutting-edge artists and entertainers. You guys have worked with some pretty big companies and brands: Stella Artois, Nike, Lush Cosmetics, Sony, MTV, ComiCon, Miller Lite, and more. You're very passionate about coaching talent and how to make a full-time career in arts and entertainment, and then pushing people strategically to their tipping point. I want to talk about that later on in the show. You live here in Dallas, just moved up to North Dallas with their husband and two sons, Oliver and Silas. Yeah. Great to have you on the show.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here.
So a fun fact about Merrick, she briefly lived in Mongolia.
Whoa.
And she told me, and I got to hear about this. She said, "I once lost my passport, my wallet, and all of my traveler's checks in China, but somehow you figured out how to get all of it back, and you didn't speak a lick of Mandarin." So tell us about this memorable adventure as we start off the show today.
Well, yeah, I was traveling through China to get to Mongolia, and I was on a train from Hong Kong to Beijing, and get off the train in Beijing, and the train goes right back to Hong Kong, and it doesn't come back for 3 more days.
Oh,
And so I left my wallet on the train. It goes back, and I realized it the second we got out of the station and the train had already left. And so anyway, to be honest, it was a miracle, because we just were like, we go to Mongolia we were going to go to Mongolia in 3 days, and the train didn't come back for 6. So
either the people that I was traveling with were going to have to go on without me, or they were going to have to stay back. So we're trying to figure it all out. And anyway, we just went back in and, to be honest, just kind of prayed. And there was a woman that kind of understood what was going on. And so we just drew, a picture of the wallet. She spoke Mandarin to the officials, and they said, basically what we could understand was come back in 2 days or 3 days. And, they would try to put it on another train and send it back. And anyway, so I came back, and sure enough, they took me down underneath the station where there was nothing.
Wow.
And there was just a flickering light in the back of the
This is
station.
like something off of a movie.
I thought for sure this is the end of my life. And I walked back there, and there was 2 Chinese officials that had my wallet, and not one thing was taken out of it. I had half of my traveler's checks were signed. I was young and stupid, but yes. So it was
from sheer panic to a miracle.
Yes, and I got myself to Mongolia, but I had to call my dad and say, you might have to come to China.
How old were you then when you were doing that?
I was 21.
Oh my gosh.
You might have to come get me.
I bet you think about that a lot when you travel now. There's no way you're leaving anything on an airplane or a train anytime soon.
Yeah.
I don't think women have the right to vote in Mongolia.
No. and Blair figures out how to tie it back into trivia. Here we go. Merrick, appreciate you sharing that. What a great story. So what we like to do is, we're a leadership show, so we like to rewind the tape a little bit. Gotten to hear a little bit of your journey pre-show, but tell us about your childhood and where'd you grow up and what'd you learn growing up that's really been influential for you as a leader?
Yeah, so I grew up here in Dallas. Actually went to school in Addison at a school called Trinity Christian Academy. And I was there for all of the years of, lower education. And I have 2 amazing parents. My dad started his own company when I was probably, I guess it was mid-90s. And so, I remember the change from him going from a corporate paid salary to us having to cut back and start from scratch and all of that. And my mom is a working woman, still is working, and she's the boss. She's amazing. So I feel like, both of them were extremely great examples. My mom, of being a hard worker, has always been a really hard worker. To date, I think most of everything that has been built around our house has been my mom. So she's a physical worker and just does really, really well in commercial real estate. My dad still has his company, and I watched a lot of entrepreneurship through him and a lot of the highs and the lows that come with that. And some years that were really successful and some that were really hard. And so it's, our family is really, really tight, through all of that. So
you're the proud mom of 2 sons, Oliver and Silas. You were sharing with us, and we'll talk about that, but you had created an app, and you were talking about this time of which you had just given birth to one of your sons, and you're talking to developers in India, trying to get an interesting situation worked out. So I'm curious, what have Oliver and Silas taught you so far in your journey that served you best as a mom?
Well, that they're more important. That, they really are. And it's no matter what it is that you're passionate about or you're building or how exciting it can get, they're central to it all. So anyway, it's been crazy. It's been crazy this last weekend. Actually, I won't tell the whole story, but Oliver actually fell back and hit his head on the fireplace. And he went paralyzed for a moment, stopped breathing for a moment. We went to the hospital, and somehow, some way, he was perfectly fine. He got his feeling back. He had no bleeding. You just kind of, it's like a blip, and you're like, my whole life could have just changed last week. And so this week, going back to work has been, just one of those things where you're like, okay, they are so important.
Such a perspective.
Yeah, I was thinking,
Absolutely.
there's something about perspective. Family gives it to you, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
It brings it back to center.
We've spent a lot of time talking about leadership on this show, but we've spent some time the last few weeks with our guests talking about young leaders. And I'm curious, What advice, Merrick, do you find yourself in the journey that you've been on? But what advice are you sharing with emerging leaders, or you would share with emerging leaders, knowing what you know now?
Go after it. I mean, the thing that keeps people back from doing awesome things is themselves. It's everybody has a situation that's going to be hard to overcome, and everybody's story is different. And some people have it a little harder than other people, but you just never really know. It's like we all have obstacles we have to overcome, but I tell a lot of people who are just wanting to go after something, or they have an idea. And I mean, I'm an idea machine, and it's like, if you just don't go after them, you have no idea what's going to develop out of it. And so, yeah, that's my number one thing, is don't be the reason why it doesn't happen.
Well, and the fear that usually consumes us, that keeps us from that. And some of that's really focused on failure. And we're all going to fail, right? So talk a little bit about processing that whole fear and failure. And
man, that is a good thing to process through. And for me, I have failed. And when I began, I actually didn't have a fear of failure. I had a fear of success. And it made me nervous. It made me nervous of, like, is my character, like, do I have what it's going to take to be successful? And so by having that fear, I actually didn't think I would fail. It was kind of like a pride thing, I guess. And then when I did fail, and you're facing failure, you're like, okay, all right, here we go. I got to actually deal with this fear as well. And but failure, which I feel like I have faced probably more straight on than extreme success, I actually love failure. It is the best university you can go through. It's the best training, the absolute, I mean, it's something that I look forward to finding things that don't work now, to tweak them, to figuring out how they will work. And it's become kind of a meticulous thing, that I like to walk through, and it causes you to really pull on mentors. When you're kind of rolling and going and doing your thing, in some way it's like you're busy. You don't have time to stop and to ask questions and pull on advice and wisdom of other people. And then when you have the rug pulled out from under you, you call on your forces, and you're like, what do I do? And it's just this beautiful dance, learning.
For our listeners out there, it's not a fear of failure, but it was a fear of success. And I got to tell you, as an entrepreneur, I completely relate to that, because you think about that. Do I deserve this? Do I deserve to have that level of success? But there's something to, whether it's your staff or whether it's yourself, allowing yourself to fail is what ultimately shapes us into who we are and helps us be the best leader that we can be, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
You called yourself an idea machine. I can relate to working with visionaries and folks who have a lot of ideas. So how do you, especially in your area of work, which I'm looking forward to talking about a little later in the show, but how do you decipher between good ideas and bad ideas, or how do you sort through those if you're somebody that's constantly coming up with creative ideas and having creative juice?
Well, I actually do. I kind of choose to surround myself. I don't know if I've actually thought about it, but the people that are the most important to me and that are the closest to me tend to be naysayers. And I'm let's do it and go and roll, and they're like, okay, here's all the holes and the reasons why that doesn't work. And that is amazing. You want those people in your life, because even though you feel like it's kind of might take the air out of your tire for a second, it's nice to have those people. And so there's that element, and then I actually keep a journal of ideas, and I will throw it on paper so that I can get it out of my head. But if I go for 6 months, I have a personal goal with myself that if I can't shake an idea for 6 months, I'm going to give it my attention. So it has to sit with me for 6 months, and I can't do anything with it for 6 months until it's until it, is
Like
becomes a part of me.
incubation period.
Yeah.
Well, ideas are all about timing too, right? So,
Yeah.
I mean,
I
you
like
might
that.
look back in that journal 2 years later and go, oh my gosh, that idea that I had back in 2019 suddenly is relevant.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Great stuff.
Yeah, it is.
Having a journal and having mentors
Well,
huge.
and a couple times you've mentioned the people around you, and I think that's absolutely, if they don't drive you crazy, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
No, they don't drive me crazy.
That's a testimony to you that you've been able to accept people who are different than you, or who do provide a different perspective, and you're willing to listen. That's an amazing leadership issue, I think, for a lot of leaders. They never get that.
Thank you.
Spend a little bit of time talking about our culture today. It's an interesting culture, to say the least. What do you see as the greatest challenge that leaders are facing today, and how are you dealing with that? And how, what advice would you give others to deal with that?
Yeah, I mean, wow, it could look like a lot of different things, but for me in my industry of arts and entertainment and the people that I'm working with a lot, who tend to be creative, creativity in general is it's at the forefront of culture. It's what becomes cool, or what is a fad, or what becomes the shirt that you're wearing, to the technology that's in this room. Somebody created that. And so, all of culture embodies what creators put forth. And so for me, I'm constantly talking to leaders, whether they feel that they're leaders or not. What they are incubating and what they are creating and what they are putting out there has the ability to really draw in the masses and affect people who have no idea that they were the ones that ever created it. And so to me, I feel like it's, for lack of a better word, a holy ground. It's a place where I really try to pour into artists and tell them the value and what they are worth, which in my industry, our mission statement is to abolish the term starving artistry. And I absolutely can't stand it when somebody, wants to call us and book us for talent, and they say, well, we have no budget for this, and we just, get us a starving artist or something. And, because it's the one industry that still has just struggled financially as an industry. Unless you're in celebrity fame,
Right.
And even that, the stories I've heard with some of the celebrities of how much they get paid when versus how much they should be getting paid,
Sure.
It's really wild. And I think it's a huge mindset change. And so what I'm constantly faced with when I'm speaking leadership things into artists is their worth, their value, their worth, because many of them have been told from a monetary standpoint that what they do has very little monetary value, and yet they pour their whole emotion, their heart and soul into that thing that then sells maybe for $1,000 at best.
Yeah, and what's so interesting, when you're around the artistic talent, they are so passionate about what they do. They're willing to live a pretty simple lifestyle. They're willing to live on the dime to do what they're passionate about. And we see a lot of the alternative, per se, with folks that are doing things of which they're making a lot of money, but they're really miserable on the inside. And it's trying to figure out how to navigate that and really find the passions of people.
100%.
I was thinking about ISF. ISF is a foundation of which we're trying to help foster care kids rise up to become leaders of influence in society. And they come from an environment of which they're told they can't. They're told all of these things throughout their life. And so I'm curious, from your perspective, what does leadership look like to you in the context of this rising up generation of leaders, whether it's we're talking millennials or Gen Zs? What does that look like in the workplace, and how are you managing that as a leader?
Yeah, so I actually wrote an article on Forbes about this specifically, with just the next generation in the workplace and how an older generation of leaders can mentor and can train them up based on the way that they're wired. And one of the things that I talk about in that article is that I believe, I'm not not super old, so I can't say out of all of the generations, but I believe that there is a presence of passion that is over an entire generation that has never existed up until now, because, you know, quite frankly, we're in a space now where people can really choose what they want to do in life versus having to do something. And you're seeing this generation that is extremely authentic. They're extremely passionate. They don't want to commit, and that doesn't necessarily mean that needs to be negative. But they're loyal. They're very loyal. And that is the main thing that, as I've been seeing kind of in the workplace, to create a culture for the next generation that gives them buy-in, it's finding out what are you passionate about? Mm-hmm. What do you want to do? And then you're seeing people create jobs around that, you know, instead of a person fitting into a role. Now you're seeing it kind of the other way around, and drawing out of them what they're really excited about. And if they don't know, giving them the ability to fail at a few things, giving them the ability to try out a few things. And when you see that light bulb go on and they're really loving it, then putting together a team around that to help it kind of grow and build out from there. And, we'll probably talk about this a little bit more, but with, you know, our artists as a talent agency, traditionally talent agencies have been very binding. And, you know, there's contracts, they're usually 2 years, you know, you're paying the agency 20% of everything that you make, and it has to go through them. And so with us, we've really changed the dynamic of that to an on-demand agency where we don't actually have any contracts with our talent. And because of that, the talent chooses to bring us deals that we negotiate and handle all of their business and their accounting and their legal and everything that they don't have to do, so that they can be the talent, you know. And people have pushed back on me before, saying, like, don't you think that that's silly to not have a contract with these people? And the more that I have sat with it, the more I'm like, this is, you know, the one, because I don't have a contract, the ones that I've worked with are extremely loyal to Artist Uprising. And we have a super high retention because of that. So there's this dynamic of, you let go of the reins a little bit and don't control this generation, and you're going to get the best out of them.
Right.
You know?
And it's so really what I'm hearing is that loyalty is really tied to the culture of the organization. And what we've done with these generations, and we talk about it often, is we put them in these cookie cutter process corporate environments of which they don't have a say, and then the perception is well, they want to move up to the top as quickly as they possibly can, and they want to be paid way more than what they deserve. But that's not what we're hearing from leaders. What we're hearing is that you've got to let their creative side out, and they've got to buy into the culture of the organization for it to be a long-lasting relationship. Well, let's talk about Artist Uprising. One of the things that you emphasize is that there's two sides to your company, and it's both the brands and the creative side of it. So let's talk about that. What makes Artist Uprising unique, and the two different areas that you guys are focused in?
Yeah, so essentially what we do is we are the bridge and the gap between companies, brands, organizations that need some kind of creative thing. It might be music, it might be art, you know, photography, videography, whatever. And we basically source the talent that best fits that brand's budget, their demographic, their vibe, style, whatever it is that they're looking for. And it can be as simple as, hey, we need a videographer to shoot, you know, ongoing content for us. Or we've gotten stuff that's like, hey, we need an experiential activation in the middle of a park, and we want it to be a giant size, you know, shipping container, and we want you to project whales in it. And it's like, okay, you know. But that's the beauty of artists, is they're like, yeah, I'm on it, got it, you know. You're like, okay. So we source the talent for things like that. And then on the artist side of things, because we are curating artists and we're finding people on Instagram and seeing how many creative people are out there and what they're putting out, we reach out to them and we say, hey, we would love to quote unquote represent you. Again, that doesn't mean you're signing a contract with us. It just means that as you get inquiries of companies that want to work with you, we're happy to negotiate your fee for you. We'll make for sure that whatever the scope is, that you're getting paid exactly what you want to get paid, if not more. Our fee is always 20%, and so it's on top of what the artist should be making when we're repping the artist, so it doesn't come out of their pocket. And then we handle all of their business admin, communication, accounting.
Share some, I know for folks out there that are not familiar with this artistic side of the world, share with us some live examples. Who are some companies that you guys have worked with, or what are some of your favorite projects that you've worked on?
Well, we just finished up one a couple weeks ago that was really, really fun. It was an artist that we rep. His name is Magdiel Lopez. This is his artwork. And he is, he's a digital designer. He does everything on Photoshop and whatnot. And I actually, to a little backstory on him, I found him on Instagram when he had maybe 300-400 followers. He was a good artist, but nothing that was like really catching me. I just kind of kept my eye on it. And then he announced he was going to do a poster a day series for a year. So I'm like, okay, this guy's about to do 365 posters. Like, he's going to do an art piece a day.
That's a lot.
It's a lot to commit to. And he got on day 3, and I saw the consistency of it, and I thought, this guy, he's amazing, and this is going to blow up because it's consistent in brands. I know what brands are looking for. Sure enough, now he's at 80,000 followers. I rep him, and we do stuff with Absolute Vodka. We do stuff with Lush Cosmetics is the one that we just wrapped up, and he did a giant size. I don't even know how to explain it. It was a digital art animation for a 4-story facade of a building corner, and it was in Tokyo, Japan, and it is bright, and it is a lot of color, and it is a lot of movement, and it is beautiful. It was beautiful. So it was for the Lush headquarters in Shinjuku.
Wow, that is neat. Ooh. You talk about helping folks strategically push through their tipping point. How do you do that?
Yeah, so with artists, there's a difference between underground artists, people that are they have a few hundred followers maybe, and they're doing some stuff, some shows around town or local things or whatever, to people who are really gathering a following. They're getting seen, they're on Instagram, they're on, social media, whatever, but they haven't reached that celebrity dome, I guess. And they haven't quite buttoned up their business process to where they can actually really, make a living in their art. And so that to me is a tipping point. And it's like, how do we give you the resources that you need and the education that you need to get your art to a place where you can be making, a 6-figure salary? I mean, and it's actually not hard. And that's, to me, I've been only doing this for 3 years, but I'm seeing a lot of artists. I have a lot of testimonies of people that have gone from rice and beans to being able to buy a home and a second home, and they're doing it with art. And it is a beautiful, beautiful thing for me to see because, I can't begin to express how much education I feel like I've had to pick up in both teaching artists a lot of, hey, you are worth getting through that tipping point. Like, your work is actually very, very good. And here are the things that I would suggest to get you buttoned up. Magdiel is a good example of one who he probably would have never hit that tipping point if he hadn't done something consistent for 365 days.
Yeah. Wow.
So, yeah.
So cool. And as always, we could go on and on and on. There's so much to learn and pick up. How do people find out about Artist Uprising? I think one of the things that I'm thinking about right now, just on the go, is, you bring such a talent space to so many areas, because I could think of the entrepreneurial business space, which is the majority of our listeners, who are looking for their tipping point. They're looking for some sort of a branding tipping point or something that sets them apart and makes them unique to create awareness out there. So how do people find out whether Artist Uprising is a good fit? What's a great way to connect with you?
Yeah, I would just go to our website, and you can reach out to us on the website, or you can direct message us on Instagram. But, we're really looking at portfolios all the time. So if you're an artist or a creator or a musician or whatever, just, reach out to the site and let us know. But you send your portfolio or your Instagram handle or whatever. If you're a brand, that's, for entrepreneurs and for people, startup companies, I love, because I call the artist the entrepreneur, and then the business is the entrepreneurs, but
Nice.
It's in and of the same thing. It's like you're packaging up your brand and trying to do something really unique and creative. So if you are a company, again, reach out to our website.
Or a nonprofit. We talked about that a little bit as well. So
Yes.
lots of nonprofits out there that are needing help with the great work that they're doing with their mission.
Absolutely.
Exciting. As we wrap up today, we really like to find out from leaders, a book or a podcast or some piece of literature that's been impactful for you in your journey. So anything come to mind that you could share with our audience that would be beneficial to them?
Yeah, absolutely. The book that I love is called Rework. And it was written by the guys who started Basecamp, and that's just a technology for businesses and organization. But Rework is, each chapter is a page with illustrations. So it is an easy read. You can pick it up and jump around, but it is the best book to understand how to be just sufficient and efficient, I should say, in your business practices. And it's especially relevant to a younger generation of next leaders. So
That's awesome. We'll have Cash put that in our Facebook feed. Rework is the name of the book. So go out there and check that out, folks. Merrick, it's been great having you today.
Thank you guys so much.
A lot of fun, and we just appreciate you taking time out of your, I know, crazy schedule as mom and entrepreneur to be with us.
Yeah, thank you so much.
So, Dr. Blair, I think Merrick gets the first guess at this.
This is the only female image on any American coin or currency, by the way. The only woman to make it big in money like this.
To be honest, I am not sure.
Okay.
I don't know.
Silver dollar.
Susan B. Anthony.
Susan B. Anthony is the winner today. You got it. Very nice. Very nice.
That's 2 in a row for me, and I'm
You're
not
on.
very bright, so I'm feeling
we
good
got to make
about
these
that.
harder. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely.
Very nice.
Well, folks, that's a wrap for our podcast today. On behalf of the Carrington Group, the International Student Foundation, and our special guest, Merrick Porchéddu,
Yes.
this is Tyler Tolman wishing you a good day. Remember this, that if your actions inspire others to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, then you are a leader. Have a great week.
Legends in Leadership is brought to you by the Carrington Group. Carrington Group is a family office with a passion for helping business leaders and their families make smart choices and fulfill their highest aspirations. To learn more about the Carrington Group, visit their website at www.carringtonfo.com or Google Carrington Group, Dallas, Texas. ISF is committed to leadership development for aged-out foster care and orphaned youth. ISF's mission is to transform these youth into tomorrow's leaders with scholarships, mentoring, and leadership training. To learn more about ISF, visit their website at isfsite.org or Google International Student Foundation to learn more.
Securities offered through Regulus Advisors, LLC, member FINRA/SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through Regal Investment Advisors, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. Regulus Advisors and Regal Investment Advisors are affiliated entities. Carrington Group and this broadcast are independent of Regulus Advisors and Regal Investment Advisors.